Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. All right, how y'all doing this morning? All right, I'm from Texas. I'm really not. I'm from Phoenix. I live in Colorado, but I lived in Texas for a while, so I say y'all. More than two of you is all y'all, so you want to keep up with that. So we have a lot to do this morning, so I'm going to be flying pretty quick, but there's a couple things I need to go through real quick. I have a couple of rules when I'm speaking, and I know you're probably saying to yourself, who are you to make rules? Well, I'm the guy with the mic, right? So I'm going to give you some rules. These are the rules, okay? Actually, they're more guidelines. They're going to help you out a lot. The first rule is this, okay? This is any number I want it to be. Okay, it's okay to laugh at that because some of you are going, that's a 1. All right, so I do know I have one finger. I didn't wake up this morning and go, oh my gosh, what happened? If I did, I would be in one of your coffee shops learning how to deal. So deal with it. Sorry, cope maybe is the word I'm looking for. Second rule is these are thumbs. I know that they're not, but I do this a lot when I'm talking. And these are quotes, not apostrophes. I know that as well. So I will make one finger jokes as I'm talking. If that makes you uncomfortable, you're going to be uncomfortable. So there it is. I'm not worried. So I'll be okay tonight and I'll sleep just fine. So we will have some fun. I encourage you to laugh. I encourage you to have some fun with me. And we're going to talk about what does this button do. As we get started, let me tell you a little bit about who I am. Let me grab the button over here. First of all, I would tell you, we're doing questions through the app, so if you haven't downloaded the app, download the app. We can do questions. Abraham's going to help field those so we can cover those. If we don't get to them, I will be around all day. I'm in the AWS booth all day today, tomorrow, and the next day. So I'll be answering questions, glad to help out. So who am I? So my name is Eric Johnson. I'm a senior developer advocate for Serverless for AWS. I love AWS. I love Serverless. I am a nerd about it. I am a dad of 5. How many? Okay, good. Some are listening. So there's always the new person in the back going, just 1, that's a 1. All right. So I'm a husband of 1, and I'm a musician. And I had that crossed out because I'm really a drummer. And a lot of people say those aren't really musicians. But I am a drummer. So I went through college playing drums. Turns out I'm a phenomenal drummer for one finger. But I'm pretty average when it comes to anything else. Nobody's going to pay me to do it full time. So, I do technology instead. So it works out. All right. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about IoT and serverless. We're going to talk about architecture, tools, and we're going to do a demo, okay? And we're going to do some live code. Now, I don't have a lot of time, so a lot of that's already prepared. So you're going to see, and I'm going to talk you through it and what we're doing. So why are we here today? Okay, and we've kind of already talked about that. So when you think about why you came in this room, you read, hey, what does this button do? IoT and serverless. I am a serverless guy. I dabble in IoT, but my specialty is serverless. So that's mostly what we're going to focus on today, although we're going to touch on both. In our booth, we've got a guy who's an IoT expert as well, so he'll be able to answer questions. But how many of y'all are using serverless right now? All righty. How many of y'all are looking at using it? Okay. How many of y'all are thinking, I'm in the wrong room? Okay, good. No, okay, one guy. Out you go. All right. So, okay. Yeah. All right. There's always one. Okay, all righty. So when we talk about IoT and serverless, IoT loves serverless. Really honestly, if you think about IoT and the way way serverless backs it, they are a great marriage. They work together. Under the IoT, we look at the action, and you work with the IoT hub. So basically what you've got here is in today's example, we've got a button that we're going to push. But there's any number of things. It could be a picture that was taken, a movement that happened, a temperature that was taken, all kinds of things. IoT has, it's limited to really just our imagination, right? And so what happens, that sensor happens, it comes to the IoT hub, and then it hits serverless. In this particular example we're talking about, it's a Lambda, okay? Where it's going to have a target Lambda, and that Lambda is going to take an action, okay? Now this is massively oversimplified, and I get that, but you think about the way that works. IoT, something happens, and serverless responds to that, okay? So it's an event and an action. All right, so when you're thinking of IoT, there's a lot of things you can do with this. You can start an AWS service, send an SMS, send an email. I won't read all these, but you can close a garage, put your house on vacation. I love it. When I leave my house, I tell Alexa, hey, Alexa, put the house on vacation for 2 weeks. And she turns my Ecobee down, and everything's great. Alexa is an IoT device. Okay, so it's an Internet of Things, and it can control a lot of different things. Alexa, tell my kids to be quiet. She doesn't do that because she's sweet, but there you go. So lots of things you can do. So My boss took this picture. He's in a building. This is a great example of what you can do. This is a button hanging in a bathroom wall. It says, please push button if the bathroom needs attention. I love the bottom one. If it's smelly, push the button. It's smelly in here, okay? So and what they've done is they've just wired that up to send an email or SMS, or really it may not even be wired. They may have just said, look, you push the button, we don't care. But this is an idea, and there's lots of things you can do with this. Has anybody played with a button before? Just one of the dash buttons? All right, well, some of you are gonna get to. I'm gonna throw out a couple today, so they're kind of fun. All right, so let's talk about the services and architecture that we're gonna do today, okay? So, right tools for the right job. When I look at serverless, I think, okay, how can I approach something? Okay, so today, we're gonna look at these AWS services. We're gonna look at Amazon API Gateway, Amazon Lambda, DynamoDB. We're gonna use AWS IoT one-click. AWS Systems Manager, that's kind of a weird place for that. If anybody have used that, like, what? Well, what's in there is a parameter store, okay? And we're gonna talk about why we're gonna use a parameter store in a little bit. And then AWS Amplify. Anybody mess with Amplify yet? Oh, you're going to love me. You might want to hug me at the end of this session, okay? Don't, because that'll be weird, but you can. I'm a hugger. So there you go. All right, so we're going to talk about these services. All right, so today's architecture. Here's how we're going to start. Real simple. We've got mobile client, web client. It's going to talk to Amazon API Gateway. Amazon allows us to set up, or API Gateway allows us to set up APIs, it's right in the name. We're very clever namers. So it's an API management service, okay? Very powerful. If you want to learn about API Gateway, we have a Twitch series called Happy Little APIs. And it's actually a series I'm doing where we talk about the nuts and bolts of API Gateway. 13 episodes, so you learn a lot about it. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna use Lambdas. And I've actually broken my Lambdas down as a get and a post. I could put these in the same Lambda. There's a big debate going on monolithic Lambdas, microservices. Here's what I believe when you're building serverless. I really think when you can, I really think it's smart to break your Lambdas down into single responsibility, okay? As developers, you may have heard this term single responsibility model, right? I do one thing, I do that one thing really well. Well, with serverless and microservices, you can take that architecture, you can move that, or you can take that methodology and move that right into your architecture. So you can I can break, with API Gateway, I can go to a different Lambda based on the resource, like user, client, whatever, or based on the method, or both. So I have a lot of different powers. So in this particular one, I'm just hitting the root of my API, and I'm saying if it's a get, hit this Lambda. If it's a post, hit this Lambda. And then I have a DynamoDB table in the back where all my stuff is taken care of. Anybody using Dynamo? All right, okay, a couple of you. Dynamo's cool. It's just, I don't know how else to say that. That's cool, all right? So the next thing we're gonna do is this parameter store that we talked about. So what the parameter store is gonna do is it's gonna have the name of the event, okay? Now you may be asking yourself, why not just hard code that into the Lambda or send it with the data from the client? Well, when we move to this, okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add an IoT button and an AWS through using one click. The AWS button, in my particular configuration, is not aware of the event name. Okay, so I want to be able to just change and modify that event name without having to redeploy my code. So my Lambda talks to a parameter store, and it grabs the parameter, the name of the event. If I go in and change that name, it just creates a new event and starts collecting data. Now, when I talk about event, here's our goal for today. We're going to build a feedback session. Okay, now you'll probably just play around with this one. I still encourage you to do feedback in the GOTO application, but this is something that we were just throwing together. Yeah, we can build this. So when we finish this, you'll be able to you go to the website and click cool, uncool, or undecided. And with the button, you can single click, double click, or long click to vote that way. All right. I could also have done a button, just a single click for cool, and a separate button for uncool. I could pass out 3 buttons and label them, but why? I just pass out a single one and it works. All right, so that's the end goal of what we're driving for. All right, so I want to introduce you to Sam. Anybody heard of Sam? All right, okay, so this room has not heard of him. That's good. Sam is going to be your friend. Another reason you're probably going to want to hug me later, okay? Sam is a framework that we use at AWS that's open source that we put out there that has 2 parts to it. The first thing is it's part of Cloud Formation. Actually, we'll jump into it so you can kind of see this. It stands for Serverless Application Model. And it's part of the AWS Cloud Formation extension optimized for serverless. So when I create a Lambda in SAM, I can do it in about 4 or 5 lines. When I create a Lambda in Cloud Formation, just raw Cloud Formation, it's like 70, 4, 5 lines. It's a lot of lines. It's a lot of code that you put in there. So with a DynamoDB table, 2 lines. That's all I need. The name of it and then what I want, okay? So special serverless resource types, does function, APIs, tables, layers, and applications. Supports anything AWS Cloud Formation supports. So if you want to use serverless and you need to tap into something that is not serverless, like maybe an RDS instance, you can put it in your same template and still bring it up. Is anybody using Cloud Formation? All right, a few more of these. Okay, so Cloud Formation, and I don't want to go off on this too much, but Cloud Formation is really a way to do infrastructure as code. It's a YAML or a JSON template that allows you to describe your infrastructure, and then you push it and AWS builds it. So you can version your infrastructure, and so it's infrastructure as code. So probably a new concept to some of you. Glad to expand on that. Again, find me in the booth, talk through that. So it is an open specification. If you want to read more about it, aws.amazon.com/serverless/SAM. All right. So what you've got is just an example. This isn't the template we're going to use today, but this is an example of a template kind of just shortened. This is what a SAM template looks like. Here's how it breaks down. The top tells the Cloud Formation this is a SAM template. So to use the normal Cloud Formation engine to run, it just says, hey, because I'm SAM, you need to do a few extra things, what are called transforms. So this between the 2 yellow lines, this is the resource area, or one of the resource areas. This is the function, first function we're going to do, and that's a get HTML function. And all I'm telling is, hey, this is where my code is. It's in an S3 bucket. Here's the handler. That means the file and the function name to run it. And the runtime, node 610. We actually don't support 610 anymore. 8 is the lowest you can go. You can go up to 10, also 10. And then any policies, and then the event. And remember we talked about serverless and how it needs the event is driven by IoT. The basic idea of serverless is I have a Lambda, or I have some type of event that's going to happen, or reaction that's going to happen based on an event. So we tell it the event, and in this instance we're using an API, and we're using what's called a proxy. It says anything after the slash. And then this bottom one creates a table. So gives you an idea of how SAM works. All right, so what happens is this becomes this, okay? Now that again wasn't the exact template we're gonna use, but you will see that template in a moment. All right, so that's kind of what we're gonna do today. So you wanna see some code, we're gonna do some code. Now, here's the truth, I'm gonna just lay this out there. I got 2 fingers, right? But I'm the worst fat finger in the world. It's like I have 900 fingers when I start typing. So you'll see some typing mistakes, but that's fun, right? You get to go, because an idiot, that's all right. So we'll have some fun with that. So let's start talking through this. Let me grab a drink real quick. If you have any questions so far, I encourage you to put them in the app. Let's keep Abraham busy. We don't want him to sleep, earn his money. So, all right. So my tool choice that we're going to use, I use Visual Code. Can all of you see that? Is that big enough? All right. Raise your hand if it's too small. Okay. Okay. So everybody. Great. Okay. Hang on just a minute. Better? One more maybe? Okay. I can't go anymore. They're like, woo, in my face. So is that readable now? Okay. All righty. And also, you'll see at the end, I share all this code. So it's not secret code. It's not even that great a code, but I share it. So, all righty. So what we're looking at here, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and launch our backend, okay? Because it's going to take a few minutes to launch, so I'll launch it and then I'll explain what I'm doing, okay? And I do have a cheat sheet. I have no qualms about that. I told you I fat finger a lot, so we just going to go around that, okay? So I'm going to start this, and then I'll tell you exactly what's going on. So let's see here. So on this, there are 2 folders here. One's a backend, one's a client, cleverly named. Our backend maps to our backend of our application, and our client maps to our client. Yep, I named those. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch our backend. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a SAM package. And this is the second part of SAM that I didn't actually get a chance to talk about too much. SAM has a local CLI tool that allows you to interact with serverless, okay? You can package, publish applications, deploy your application, create layers, do all kinds of things. explaining that, it's a little beyond the scope of what we're going to do today, but I'm glad, again, to talk to you about it in the booth. So what this is going to do is we're going to say, hey, I want you to package everything based on that template. The template is inherent because it knows if I'm in this folder to look for a template called template.yaml, okay? And I want you to package it up, I want you to drop it in this specific bucket, and I want you to create another template that has the modified information. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, successful. Woo, first successful. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, so what it just did there is it actually zipped and uploaded my entire application to an S3 bucket. And then it created a new template called out.yaml that has that location name and any modifications that I need to make. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy. So what this says is, hey, I want you to deploy this template using the template out.yaml. Here's the stack name. So the stack is my Cloud Formation application. Here's what I want you to name it. And then I have to do a thing called capabilities, which I missed part of my copy here. And all this is doing, and don't worry too much about this, but all this is saying is, hey, because I'm creating roles, I have to tell it that I'm allowed to. So that's the capabilities flag. So let's go ahead and start that. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a change set. Okay, it's going to actually create one. And if I had already created the stack, it would create the change set and verify it against the new one to say, hey, does this make sense? Once that change set is complete, then it's going to go ahead and create or update. In fact, it's already complete. It's going to go ahead and create or update the stack. Now, while that's happening, I want to walk you through the template, okay, so you can see it. So this is the Cloud Formation template that we were talking about. Let me make a little more room here. Okay, so this metadata, you don't need to worry about at the moment, but what that's for is if I'm creating what's called a service application repository app. Okay, and so I can actually package this and make it available for someone else later. We're going to get rid of that for the moment. I'm using a layer in my application, and a layer is a place to share code. So I have a layer that I've created that I can inject into my code, and that layer is, this is what's called the Amazon resource number, and that tells it where to go get it. And I'm using a mappings. If you've never used Cloud Formation, again, this is probably a little like, woo, but the mappings allows me to pass different values and have it base it upon what area I'm in. I'm using EU Central 1, which is out of Frankfurt, because that's the closest data center to where we are now. Generally, I'll use US East 1 or US West 2 because I live in Colorado. All right, so I'm able to pass some global things. So for every function, I want their timeout to be 3. I want Node.js 8.10. This is that map that I find what region I'm in and grab the layer. And then I pass in some environment, okay? Now, the reason this is important is this allows me to granularly pass in data to my application. I want my Lambda to know that my table name is under the parameter table name, okay? And I have a session parameter. That's the name of the session that I'm going to write to. Because you remember we talked about I need to pull that from the parameter store. Okay. I'm applying some cores. High security, I just said allow everything and anyone do anything. So I really locked it down tight. So you can modify cores on AWS or on API Gateway. All right. So parameters, I can pass in a name. I'm defaulting to my session, so I didn't pass in anything. And all this is this says, what's the name of my event, okay? All right, then under the resources, this is the meat and potatoes, okay? The first thing I'm gonna do is create a session parameter, and I'm gonna name that. The value is gonna be the session name that I declared up here. So I'm creating a key inside the parameter store. I'm kicking all this water down here. I'm gonna create a key inside the parameter store, and I'm gonna say, I want you to have the value of my session. I could have said GOTO Amsterdam. I could have said anything here. And then it's going to give me a key name, and it's going to be some random number. But I pass that data back in right here to my application. Little confusing, but the basic thing is by the end of the day, my application is going to know what key to use to write to my DynamoDB table. Okay? So all through, and when you're seeing all this, like, well, you could just hard code all that, right? You could name it. I could, but then this application isn't reusable, is it? Because it always has to be the same. So I can have this, so this is always dynamic. I don't care what my table is named. I don't care what my Lambda is named. I don't care what the parameter is named. I just care that my application is aware of it. Okay, and so that's what I'm doing here. Second thing I'm doing is I'm building my get function. Okay, so this is what's called the logical name of it. Here's what it is. We say, yeah, it's going to be a serverless function. And then I tell it, here's where it's located. The code is under the Git folder. And I want you to run application and .lambda handler, okay? And then the policies, these are controlled policies. Now with this policy, I can say, you see DynamoDB read policy. We have a list of about 30 managed policies that I can do. And I can granularly say DynamoDB read policy, and I can pass the table. So in effect, what I've done is I'm saying this Lambda can only read from this table. Nothing else can, okay? Because I'm passing that granular permission. Really important, really powerful. All right, really powerful. I was giving her the thumbs up. Did you guys see that? But everybody in the picture is like, he's just pointing at himself. So, all right, so anyway, really powerful, really strong way of being strong security. Least amount of privileges, right? That's what we want to set this up. So what I've done is that they can only read, and he can only read from the parameter using the same thing. I'm passing an event. I'm saying web-get is a logical name. It's going to be on an API path of the root and the method of get. Okay? Hope that makes sense so far. If it doesn't, we can please put questions. So, and I know I'm going fast. There's a lot to do in 45 minutes. So post function, same thing. Also doing some granular. Notice though, I'm doing a CRUD policy here. I'm not doing a read because the post needs to be able to create, read, update, and delete, right? So we're doing a full CRUD policy on that. But as far as the parameter, we can only read from that. The only difference here is we're doing the method post, okay? So that's going to change. So now we're saying this is a different function I want you to fire. The last thing is my table. Remember I said you can create a DynamoDB with 2 lines? There it is. Logical name and the type. These outputs are just handy for me for later, okay? So, oh, hey, look at there. We've created a successful updated stack. So let's go take a look, see what we've got here. So I'm going to go over to Cloud Formation. Let me blow this up. Probably hard to see. Is that readable? All right, excellent. Okay. So what here's the one that I built earlier in case all the internet died and I couldn't show you anything. I could at least have something to show you. Here, I'm sorry, that's this one. Here's the one we just built, and it built successful. And I have some outputs, which, remember I said down here, these are things to help me. So I do output right here. I want the web-get API, the feedback table name, such parameter name, just information that helps me out. So I can go over here and I can look at these outputs. Okay, and the one that I need right now is I need to know which API we're going to use. So there you go. So if we look at the resources that we're output, everything I need for my application is here. Okay, so let's try it. Let's just see what happens. Okay, there's my API endpoint, and I get back a null, which I expected. Okay, all right. So right now I'm doing a little dance behind the podium. Okay, all right, so the next thing we need a front end to deal with this, okay? This is where I'm gonna introduce you to Amplify Console, okay? I'm not gonna go into big time on what Amplify is, but if you're a front end developer and you like React, Vue, or just JS in general, check out Amplify, it's very cool. But what we're gonna look at today is the Amplify Console. This allows me to set up a CI/CD for my front end very easily, and I'm gonna do that right here in front of you, okay? So I'm gonna go over to, so my front end is already coded. I'm not gonna make you painfully watch me code a front end here, okay? My CI/CD, I designed the site myself, so proud of it. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and show you how I launch it. Now, again, I've already got one because if internet fails, this still wouldn't have worked, but I could show you that I make it happen. So we're gonna connect an app, okay? I'm gonna tell it my application is in GitHub, okay? I'm gonna go next, okay? And then I'm going to say it's going to want me to authorize, which I've already actually done. And I tell it which application I want. This is the feedback web client. It's connected to another app. I know that. But now I'm going to do the branch, okay? So I'm going to actually connect to the master branch, okay? Because that has everything I need to do that. And I've connected to the other one in case anything goes wrong. All right, so I'm going to hit next here. Okay, now here's the fun part. It already it's downloaded. Take a look at the code. It already recognizes that it's a Vue framework. So I use Vue.js, and so it already knew that. So I'm going to pass in a variable that I know that I need, okay, called, let's see, Vue app API, oops, endpoint. Okay, so my app is going to be looking inside of it for that, and this is the endpoint that we just created, okay? So now I can add that. I'm going to go next. All right, I'm going to go save and deploy, and it's going to actually run through. It's going to download. It's going to run any commands I want it to in that configuration. We didn't change anything because the view was already set. And then it's going to deploy this. So we're going to give that some time to run, okay? So real quick, while it's doing that, I'm going to walk you through the backend code real quick just so you can kind of see what a Lambda looks like code-wise. All righty. So let's go over here. So we're going to go to our Git code, okay? So real simple. I'm pulling in my AWS framework. I'm creating a DynamoDB client and an SSM client, okay? Then I need to know the names. So remember I told you how I'm passing in that parameter name into my application? I can grab it because I use Node. I can use process.environment.session_parameter. And now I know the name that I need to work with when I'm using my DynamoDB table, okay? Or I know the name that I need to grab when I go get that information, okay? So this is in our template. Let me go back to my template for a second to show you this. In our template, we said in our Git function, we want to hit app.lambda handler, okay? So under the file name app lambda handler, this is your handler. Anytime you load a Lambda, this is the function that's going to get executed, okay? This needs to work. Okay, and it needs to have a proper response. When I'm going through an API gateway, I'm going to have a response of at least a status code and a body, and I'm going to pass some headers. Okay, so this is real simple. If there's a problem, it's going to error out with a 500. If everything works, it's going to have a 200. Okay, very simple. So all this is doing is it's saying it's getting the parameter name. And then it's grabbing, I'm using an await here, I'm using an async function. It's grabbing the data from the database. So his entire job, he does one thing really well, is he gets the parameter and he pulls the data, okay? And then he ships it back to the client, okay? And that's it. So if you remember in our architecture, we were saying we have a get and a post. So in the post doesn't look a lot of different. So he has one job, and he's going to do. So we're setting our types of cool, uncool, and undecided. What's coming through, and it's matching it. This is when our button comes through. It's matching it to the type of buttons. So this guy does the same thing. Okay, in the handler, we're going to grab the session, so we know the session to work with. We're going to match up the mood to make sure we have it. Okay, so then we're going to, so we make sure the event. Now here we have to do a check, okay? Because in my code, I could be coming through the API gateway. So if someone's clicking on my website, it's coming through the API gateway, and my event looks like one thing, okay? But if it's coming through the IoT backend, my event looks like another thing. The Lambda doesn't care. It just says, hey, these events are different. So in this, I'm just looking to say, is there a b.click type, okay? I'm sorry, if event.body. If else, then it's going to grab the mood from the event.device event button click type, okay? So it's, again, this is the website, so that's HTTP, and I just pass click type. This is a button, and it comes into the device event, okay? Past that, this is talking to DynamoDB. I declare the table name. Remember, I don't care the table name. I just need to be able to get it. So I'm getting it through the parameter, process.environment.table-name. All right. So last thing we have is our ID. It's saying get the ID, and that's going to be the session name. And then it's basically atomic. We're just adding data. Okay, we're just popping data in there. Okay, and then this makes the call, and you either get an error or a success. Okay, so very simple. One thing, do that one thing somewhat well. This code probably be added on, made a little better, but it does the job. Okay, all right. So let's see if our front end's created. Hey, look at that. All right, so we're going to go over here, and we're going to click on our master. We're going to click that link, okay? Success, okay? Now check this out. Since I know you were all going to say cool anyway, right? So this is cool. So I just clicked on that thing. Well, maybe one of you in the back didn't like the one-finger joke, so he's undecided, okay? So we can go to town on this. If you can see that, here, let me blow this up. If you can see that, if you want to, go to that URL, you're welcome to, hassle me and heckle me. All right, so we built a back end and a front end, and we got about 15 minutes left. So we're doing pretty good, okay? I won't walk you through the code on the front end because it's not great code, but it works, I'm a talker, not, but the development is my secondary part. But I am sharing, at the end of my presentation, I will share a link to all the code so you can get at it, okay? So let's talk about IoT. So if we go back to our presentation here, and we look at, and I'm not going to actually bring it up, but just so you can see it. So now what we're going to look at, we've done everything except for this guy right here. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to do the IoT. Now, something I learned here is that when you have 1 billion people in the room, which there aren't 1 billion, but that's what I'm going to tell my boss. There was 1 billion people. It was awesome. None of the other sessions had anybody. It's like awesome. So anyway, but the idea is, or when I went to do the buttons this morning, it was having a problem claiming it. So I'm not actually going to show you on the phone the claiming part. I'm just going to describe it. It's very easy. There's an application that you can download for your iPhone, Android, whatever, called the IoT One Click. And in that application, you simply say claim, and then you set you're able to connect to the button and actually set it to connect to the wireless, okay? And that's all the application does. Luckily, I came here yesterday and did 2 of them just in case this were to happen. So I'm a learned, live coder experienced guy. So I'm not going to show you actually claiming the button, but that's all it does. You bring up your app, you're going to scan the back of the button, and I'll show you here. Let me pop out a button real quick. Okay, so you're going to scan the back of the button. This is what they look like. And this particular model is the IoT Enterprise button. And so you scan the back of that, and then you're going to claim it, which means, hey, that's mine. Okay, and then you can set the Wi-Fi. And you can reset the Wi-Fi. You can also unclaim it. In fact, at the end of the day, I'm going to unclaim these, and I'm going to toss out some. So, and what happens is then this is connected to whatever Wi-Fi you're on, and you connect it to your service. So let's talk through connected to your service. Okay, so going to AWS IoT One Click. These are my 2 buttons. I have one I enabled yesterday. That's my vote button for the just in case nothing works, so you can see this. This is the one that I added this morning. This is the one we're going to do. Now, notice this says US West 2. Don't worry about that, okay? The buttons are hard-coded to regions. That's just how they'll bill. They'll still work in your regions, things like that. So, all right, so what we're going to do is the first thing is we need to create a project, okay? So we're going to create a project, and we're going to call this feedback demo, okay? Hello world, okay? That's my description, okay? If anybody asks, tell them it was much cleverer than that, okay? So, project, that means, hey, I'm just gonna tie this project. In this project, I'm gonna create a device template. You can do more than one. I really only need the one. So we're gonna start here, and all button types are good, but then I wanna tell it what to do, okay? So I'm gonna say, this is going to be a feedback vote, okay? And I don't want to send an SMS, although I could. I want to select a Lambda function, okay? And my EU Frankfurt, and then it's going to list all the Lambdas I've got, okay? And so we're going to do the feedback build post function, because that's the one we just built, okay? So what I've now done is I've said, when you click this button, trigger this function. It's that simple. I've just wired it together. However, I haven't actually added a button yet, have I? Now, the other thing I can do, this is kind of cool, is I can pass attributes. I could have assigned my name here to my session name, but then I'm kind of managing in 2 places, right? And I guarantee you, if I type it in 2 places, I'll get it wrong twice, okay? So, Abram, I saw that. All right, good. He told me to acknowledge him. You're acknowledged, and I love bald. So there you go. All right. Okay, so now we're going to create that project, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a placement. That means we're going to assign a button. And I can do multiple buttons. Remember I said I could have a vote up button, vote down button, vote, undecided button, thumbs sideways, I guess. So we're going to just call this vote all. So this is going to handle all the votes, okay? And we're going to choose our device, okay? So I have, let's see here, I'm going to choose that button. It didn't really let me tell which one it is. It's the available one, right? So, but you could go back to that screen and make sure your IDs match here, okay? Now I can then go through and I can assign it. So I could say, hey, here's some extra data I want to pass into my Lambda. So I could say something like, session go to Amsterdam. Okay, I haven't done anything to Lambda to collect that, but we're going to create a placement. All right, so we have a vote all, and everything's there. Now, here's the big moment. We haven't tested this yet. If I click this button, let me go back to the website. Maybe I should just make sure it works before I show you, but we'll try it anyway. All right. So if I click this button once, our green should go up. Ready? Okay, and it takes a while to go through. It just went through. There you go. All right, here, I'm gonna throw this out. Somebody catch it. Vote. Tell me what you think. Cool, uncool? Now here's a trick on it. 1 click is cool, 2 clicks is uncool. It says right there. The long click, hold it for about 4 seconds. This isn't like the most, it's like, oh my gosh. So really, it's just easier to vote cool. I'm just throwing that out there, you pass that around. So with that, we have created a front end, a back end, and we've tied in a button, and we've done it in roughly 35 minutes. Give or take 2 minutes, whatever. I could get up to 4, but I have to take my shoes off and it just gets weird. So with that, I'm gonna open it up if we have any questions. I would love to answer any questions you have. And do we have any questions coming in?
Yes, one question, but
okay.